Table originated during the time of the Vietnam War as a symbol for and the remembrance to service members held prisoner of war or missing in action. Solitary and solemn, it is the table where no one will ever sit. It was just a little white table, but it brought tears of pride to my Uncle John's eyes. The Veterans Day he came for dinner and stood by it, sat for one person even though nobody would be eating at it. It was just a little white table, but earlier that day, Mama had told Gretchen, Samantha, and me the table we were setting for Veterans Day was just like the ones that have stood across America in the dying cause of the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force since the Vietnam War ended. The tables honor the men and women who serve in America's armed forces, especially those missing in action or MIA and those held prisoner of war or POW. It was just a little white table, but it felt as big as America when we helped Mama put each item on it, and she told us why it was so important. We use a small table, girls, she explained first, to show one soldier's lonely battle against many. We cover it with a white tablecloth to honor a soldier's pure heart when he answers his country's call to duty. We place a lemon slice and grains of salt on a plate to show a captive soldier's bitter fate and tears as the family is waiting for loved ones to return, she continued. We push an empty chair to the table for missing soldiers who are not there. We lay a black napkin for the sorrow of captivity and turn over a glass for the meal that won't be eaten, she said. We place a white candle for peace, and finally a red rose in a vase tied with red ribbon for the hope that all our missing will return someday. Mama finished speaking just as sunlight stood on the table and filled the overturned glass. It was just a little white table, but it suddenly made me want to burst with a feeling I couldn't explain when Mama told us how much our setting the white table would mean to Uncle John that night. Then she told us something we didn't know. Our Uncle John, who gave us big bear hugs and spun us with airplane twirls and called me his Katie girl, was a POW in Vietnam before we were born.
It was just a little white table, but it gave us the courage to ask Mama what happened to Uncle John in Vietnam. She quietly told us his story. When Uncle John served in Vietnam, he was sent on a rescue mission, and his helicopter was shot down behind enemy lines. She began.
And he and his 3 crew members were taken prisoner. One crew member named Mike had serious wounds from the crash, but Uncle John and the other men tried to help Mike get better and persuaded a guard to bring Mike medicine. Then, one day, when a guard looked away, Uncle John and the others had a chance to escape, but Mike was still too sick to go. So Uncle John and the others stayed behind because he wouldn't leave a fellow soldier so alone so far from him. But how did Uncle John get free? We asked Mama. Sometime later, Uncle John had a chance to escape again, and somehow he was able to take Mike with him, carrying him on his back and collecting just enough rainwater and big leaves to keep them alive until Uncle John found an American infantry unit to help them. But even though Uncle John did everything he could to bring Mike home alive, Mike's wounds were just too serious, and he died before the rescue helicopter landed. I know that Mike was only 20 years old and dreamed of playing football, but he loved America enough to give his life for his country when duty called. And I know how much Uncle John loves America too, but he learned when helping Mike that a soldier risks his life for a fellow soldier because the best of your country lives in every man and woman who would lay down their life for you too. was just a little white table, but it needed words of gratitude like Mommy's thanks to the meal. So before Uncle John arrived for dinner, Gretchen and Samantha and I decided to put 3 guests our own on the table to honor our veterans. Gretchen colored pictures of all the objects on the table, and Samantha wrote out all the words of my country, tyranny, and tribute and song. But I didn't know what a 10-year-old girl could ever put on the table that wasn't as important as each veteran's gift of freedom to me. It was just a little white table, but I looked at it all dinner long, and in a quiet inside me, I could almost hear the silent soldiers of the empty chair saying, "Remember us. We are real people like your Uncle John and Mike, who left families and friends, homes and dreams of our own, to protect your birthright of liberty from disappearing as easily as sunlight from a glass." It was just a little white table, but it took my words away when I hugged Uncle John goodnight and wanted to thank him for serving our country so bravely. So I just hugged him even harder and told him I loved him. Uncle John hugged me back even harder than I had hugged him. And that's when I knew what I could put on the table. I promised to put the words from my heart into a little book about America's white table. And in the book, I used Gretchen's pictures and Samantha's song and Mama's story about Uncle John and his friend Mike, because I hope that everyone who read it would set a white table on Veterans Day too, so the brave Americans that the little table honors will ever feel forgotten by the country they love so much. Then in the salt on the little white table, I traced in the grains of their families here what each man and woman who serves America is to me, a hero. And that's when I saw the tears of pride fill my Uncle John's eyes. And now a final quote from General George Washington. "The willingness with which our young people are likely to serve in any war, no matter how justified, shall be directly proportional as to how they perceive the veterans of earlier wars were treated and appreciated by their nation."